What's going on, guys? Welcome back. And I finally saw the new Pixar movie that came out this February, I believe it was, and or March. And I hadn't watched it. I didn't get to see it in theaters because of course, the COVID-19 pandemic that happened, and now the theater chains are closed. So I didn't get to see it in theaters. Now it's come out on digital and stuff, and I just hadn't gotten around to watching it. But I have now, and I gotta say, it was a pretty good movie. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the performances from Tom Holland, the voice performances, that is, from Tom Holland and Chris Pratt, as well as a lot of the characters in general. Like, of course, the voice acting and the animation is gonna be, like, absolutely incredible. I actually thought the action scenes were actually pretty fun and pretty interesting in the way they were executed, with, of course, the magic and the mix of the magic and technology that was used in the world. But there was one major problem that, well, a lot of people are praising the ending and saying it's the best part of the movie. To me, it was kind of the most disappointing part of it. There will be spoilers, of course, in this video for Onward if you haven't seen it, because it involves... My biggest flaw involves a very important part of the movie. So, we're gonna jump into it now, and anyone who hasn't seen Onward, you can click off now. And all of you who have seen Onward, which I would assume is a majority of people watching this video, we're gonna get into it. So, the biggest problem with Onward as a film, and I'm not coming at this as a Pixar hater. I love Pixar. I think they've made some of the best animated films ever, honestly. Up, WALL-E, Ratatouille, Finding Nemo, and even some of the sequels in there, Finding Dory, I thought was pretty good. Like, they're all really good movies. I thought some of the recent ones kind of sucked. I thought Incredibles 2 kind of sucked. I actually did like Toy Story 4 a decent amount. But Onward is just, it's okay. You know, like I said earlier, I liked it. I enjoyed a lot of aspects from it, but the ending and really the main message becomes kind of convoluted and poorly executed by the end because of a major conflict in the film. Once again, spoilers from here on out. Anyway, the big main conflict of the film is, you know, the main plot is these two brothers, Tom Holland and Chris Pratt, are trying to bring back their father, and they only bring back his legs, and they go on this adventure to bring him back. And at one point of the film, they are talking to these police officers, and they're using magic to disguise themselves as one of the police officers, and one of them says, of course, the younger brother, Tom Holland, says he considers his older brother a screw-up. And they kind of try to play it off as like, oh, he's like, oh, no, I didn't mean it, but you know he did mean it. And his brother tells him, oh, well, you told me that I shouldn't talk to these pixies, which is a chase scene earlier in the film, which he provoked, because Chris Pratt provoked an argument with the pixies, which he knew he shouldn't have done, and therefore got his brother in trouble. And in this scene, Tom Holland, when he's talking to his brother, he says, you're making it really difficult for me because I have to take care of Dad, and I have to do all this stuff, and you're making it hard on me, which is justified. Tom Holland was right in that scenario. And I found it really interesting that in this film, Tom Holland, that character, actually called his brother out on the fact that he's wrong. He's been making bad decisions throughout the entire film. And it's just a huge problem, and he shouldn't be doing that. He's the older brother. He should be more mature. He should be making better decisions than that. Then, near the end of the film, he goes out to, after they finally make it there, they think they failed, and Tom Holland's just, like, sitting out on the water or whatever, looking out at the water, and he looks at his checklist of all the things he wanted to do with his dad, and he realizes, oh, I did a lot of them with my brother. During this scene, they show flashbacks to other scenes from the movie where he did these things with his brother. One of them was getting a driving lesson. But the driving lesson he received was in a high-stress scenario where he was in the middle of a car chase where he possibly could have gotten killed as a result of his brother's poor actions and poor thinking. That's his brother's fault. That's not a thing that you should be happy about. It's not really a thing where he should be looking back at it and being like, oh man, I did all these things with my brother and it's so great. So then after that, he goes back and finds his brother, and he says, I'm so sorry about everything I said. And then his brother is just basically like, oh, we have this other thing to focus on. In that scene, they basically directly ignore the conflict from earlier in the film, because they just, like, wrote it out of the story. They just forgot about it, because he shouldn't apologize, because they're showing earlier scenes in the film that you're supposed to be like, oh man, he did all these things with his brother, but most of them are just bad things. Like, he's in bad scenarios because of his brother. And he was right about accusing his brother and saying that he has been making poor decisions throughout the entire film, because he has. There's no reason for him to apologize. In that scene, they try to act like the conflict of the film and the main message, which is he's been looking for a father figure his entire life and realizes that he's had that in his brother the entire time. They try to play it off in that scene with him apologizing as if the main conflict of him saying his brother has been making bad decisions and the main message of his brother being kind of the father-type figure to him are different things, which they aren't, though, because they just showed us in the scene that the scenes of him and his brother, where his brother's been making poor decisions, are the things that his brother has been doing as a fatherly figure. So it's just poorly executed, and they never actually address the fact that Chris Pratt, as a character, has been making poor decisions throughout the entire film. And right there, they basically ignore that, and he apologizes. Even if they just had Chris Pratt say, no, I'm sorry, I was wrong, and you were right. I've been making poor decisions, and I've been just an idiot. And the thing is, I don't think the film ever directly acknowledges this, because he seems like a pretty stable guy for the most part, but I feel like the Chris Pratt character is slightly mentally unstable. They never actually outright say, I know this is kind of a mature topic for my channel, but that character is played off a little bit as slightly mentally unstable. He is so obsessed with his, like, board games about magic and stuff, and his games about magic and stuff. He's so obsessed with that he almost loses sight of reality. But he is right about that, because the spells that they use are from his games and stuff, but he loses sight of reality at a point where he starts arguing with these pixies about stuff that he saw in his game or whatever, or that is in his game, and then he gets his brother in danger as a result of it. And later on in the film, you find out that the reason why he's been acting so fearless for most of his life is because of losing his father in the hospital, and he was really afraid of that. So I feel like part of that is, maybe they didn't really explore it very much, but what they're trying to say is, because of the fact he's been trying to act really strong and, like, fearless, he's gone so nerdy and obsessed that he's lost sight of reality and kind of doesn't think about things properly. And maybe if the film had made more of a point, there's 3 different things they could have done here. They could have actually explored the fact that his obsession and, like, absolute nerdity is making, I just made up a word, is just making him unstable, and he's losing sight of reality. The second thing they could have done is literally just written the character with a disability. I'm not saying this had to be done. Once again, this is one of 3 options. But, like, I've been watching movies lately of people that have disabilities. It would have been a good message to show a main character that is good and overcomes something by the end that has a disability. And if you didn't know, this is kind of a personal fact. My uncle passed away, like, 6 or 7 years ago, and he actually had a mental disability. He was a great guy, but he did have a mental disability. And I think that what they could have done to play up the fact why the character's been making poor decisions and why he's slightly unstable is because he has a disability. This wouldn't be a thing that they stick with throughout the entire film and never acknowledge and just have him, like, turn into a psychopath. No, they would show him overcome that, and they would show him overcoming that is, and, like, learning his lesson by the end of it, that he can't just, lose sight of reality because of these games and stuff. And then the last thing they could have done is played up the fact that the brothers don't like each other. They never play up the fact that these brothers dislike each other. The Chris Pratt brother comes off a little irritating at first. He comes across very strong and is just very annoying. And they argue throughout the film because they're both trying to get towards the same goal in different ways. They're trying to get their father back, but they're both trying to go about that in different ways. So that obviously comes about by them arguing. But they're never established as disliking each other. They're never like, I don't like you or whatever. That's why the conflict is there. And, you know, some people will go into the film and say, oh, that's just an obligatory conflict that they need to have in the film because children's films need an obligatory conflict that happens at one point or another. But I found it really interesting that they actually had the guts to be like, okay, Tom Holland is going to call out Chris Pratt on the fact that he's been making poor decisions. And I was completely on his side until they have him apologize, which he doesn't have to do because he shouldn't apologize to him because he's right. His brother's been making poor decisions, and whether or not he got a reunion with his father, they never actually conclude the main conflict of the film, which they do tie into the main message of the film by having him be the father figure, but by being the father figure, he's been putting his brother in danger, which actually affects the main theme and message of the movie and makes it a little worse, because this obviously wasn't the intention, but if they'd wrapped it up in a more clean way or established the fact that he had a disability or something along those lines, or that they didn't like each other, or that they established more of the fact that his hardened edge side is making him lose sight of reality. Either of those three things would have made it better, and then when his brother apologizes to him at the end, and he actually does apologize to him instead and says, no, I was wrong, that would have shown growth, and then at the end, when they flash forward in time, they could have shown his brother improving that. And he is still being kind of that fatherly figure for him, but he's not going about it in the same, like, unthoughtful way that he used to. That's my biggest problem with Onward. I know this video is going on for a while, but I just wanted to talk about it, because it may seem like I'm hating the movie, but I didn't hate it. I really liked Onward. I thought it had great voice acting, once again, great animation, and it had a nice message, but I think people are overselling how great the message is, because they're ignoring the fact that the main conflict of the film is tied directly into the main message and theme, and is directly ignored, and as a result of that, it has bad ramifications for the main theme, because it makes the main theme less of, okay, the other brother, at the end, he's been a good father figure, but he has made mistakes along the way and must improve that. That is a secondary theme they could have had in there, but they had a secondary conflict in the film, which I've been talking about through the entire video, that they never wrap up. They just have Tom Holland apologize to his brother for no reason. He doesn't have to apologize. So if they literally just wrote like a line into the script where Chris Pratt says, no, I'm sorry, I was wrong, that would have made it a lot better. But they didn't. So as it stands, it's a good family movie. It's a good movie in general, with stellar animation, stellar voice acting, a great cast, just everything about it is pretty great on paper. But the fact that they forgot to wrap this up is really strange to me, because Pixar never usually does that. They usually wrap up these stories and tie them up in such a perfect little bow most of the time, and they have like the most perfect thought out endings, like WALL-E, Up, all these movies that are so well written, and they're just so satisfying to watch. When I left this movie, I enjoyed it, and thought it was nice, and it was a good message overall, but there was something missing from it that it kind of bothered me, and it didn't leave necessarily a bad taste in my mouth, but it made me feel a little weird. It really did. It's you may think I'm getting too in-depth about this because it's a family movie, but it's really made me think about it a lot. I've been really thinking about this movie a lot over the past couple days since I watched it. I think it deserves a lot more thought than people give it credit for, and maybe there's something I'm missing, but for me, Onward, the biggest problem with Onward is it directly ignores its main conflict, and therefore kind of ruins the main theme of the movie. That's all I'm going to say about Onward. Let me know what you thought of the video. Do you think this is a good video? Do you think it examined the film well? Whatever your thoughts are, please let me know them all in the comments below. And as always, I hope you guys have a great day. Take care.